Ladies and gentlemen, can I bring this first of our presentations to order? My name's Hal Bernstein. I'm Chief Executive of the City Council in Manchester. I guess most of you know me. One of the things that we've been talking about last night and before is how Manchester is different, how we are trying to create a very, very distinctive offer which not only drives our economy forward but also provides the platform for a whole series of growth opportunities within the city and the wider region. I don't think you can go anywhere else in MIPIM this year and hear a presentation about science and innovation. That's effectively part of the theme of today. Why? Because it is about how successful cities over the next decade or more are actually going to focus on their key assets, diversify their economic base and drive a whole series of new growth opportunities. And when we go to the event at lunchtime and start to debate amongst some of our other European competitors, it will become increasingly important, particularly when you hear Jim O'Neill talk about the importance of places like Manchester and the UK actually improving their trading capabilities with emerging economies, in fact high-performing economies now in the Far East. So to start our presentations this week, I'm delighted to invite Mike Emmerich. Mike is the Chief Executive of the new Commission for the Economy. We're thinking of another name, we still haven't quite got there. And Mike's going to explain to you some of the progress we've made in developing our science and innovation agenda, and very specifically a detailed proposition which has property development connotations going forward. Mike.
Thanks very much, Howard. So some of you, people who were here for this presentation last year, will remember that we talked at length about this stuff, graphene. The thinnest, strongest substance known to man, the world's first two-dimensional substance. An odd thing to talk about at a property and regeneration conference in some ways, but in many ways I think it's absolutely logical for a city such as ours in the world we're in today. By way of a bit of background, what I'd like to do is to show you a video.
Explains graphene. This is graphene, superhero of material science. This is the first material that is two-dimensional, giving it a unique set of properties. Since 1859, many scientists were looking for graphene using complex experiments. But the first crystals of graphene were discovered in 2004, using a very simple and effective method, namely ordinary sellotape. During Friday evening experiments in Manchester, scientists noticed small parts of graphene on the tape used to clean a graphite stone. The two scientists, Andrei Geim and Konstantin Novoselov, were awarded with the Nobel Prize in Physics 2010 with this simple but groundbreaking experiment. Thanks to the sellotape method, this area of science grew extremely quickly, and today hundreds of laboratories all over the world deal with different aspects of graphene research. What makes graphene a really super material? It's the combination of its unique properties. Graphene is the first 2D crystal ever known to us, the thinnest object ever obtained, and also the lightest one. Graphene is the world's strongest material, harder than diamond and about 300 times stronger than steel. Graphene conducts electricity much better than copper. Graphene is a transparent material. Graphene is bendable and can take any form you want. And this unique supermaterial gave birth to a new class of crystals that are also just one atom thin. And what's more fantastic is that these can be shuffled with each other to engineer new materials on demand to meet the special needs of different industries. All these these factors moved graphene swiftly from the research laboratory to the marketplace, driven by demand from industries where such supermaterials are required. Aerospace, automotive, electronics, energy storage, coatings and paints, communications, sensors, solar, oil, and so on. With mass production methods being intensively developed, expect to come across some graphene in your own life very soon.
So that's why we're talking about graphene. And this is graphene. This is a silicon wafer with some crystals of graphene, 1,000 layers thick apparently on the silicon wafer, which is the black thing you can see. £1,000 worth apparently. But when we came here last year, what we had were samples like that and these two Russians in Manchester with their researchers. Honestly, we hadn't met them. We hadn't talked to them. A few weeks after we met here last year, we extended an overture to the university. We had a civic dinner. And at the civic dinner with Howard and I, André Geim said, "Thank you very much for a lovely dinner. Now we want you to help us." And the challenge he set was to say, look, all those countries are investing in science. The British government has not yet made that commitment. Go and secure us the commitment so we can take forward this revolution in Manchester. The first revolution in Manchester. But let's look at two others. Anyone know what that is?
It's the baby.
It's the baby. Alan Turing's computer, which he put together at the University of Manchester. Who's the guy in the middle? Ernest Rutherford, splitting the atom, the work done in Manchester. The problem is that of those three groundbreaking technologies, only one produced jobs and growth on an epic scale in our city. And that was the challenge we faced as we talked here last year. Can we make graphene more like the first of those and perhaps a little less like the second two? And you'll see a stalker in the middle of this picture, because that's more or less what we did. After we came here in March and leading up to the conference speech that the Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, made to the Conservative conference in Manchester, at which he announced a £50 million graphene hub, what we did was literally to work all out to secure the financial support that this technology deserves and to make sure that it comes to Manchester. And this was the tour that he and David Willits did around the university just before he made his conference speech and announced one of the few bits of good news I think we'll have to say in his conference speech in Manchester, which was the £50 million for the graphene hub, the down payment of the British government in commercialising this science. And that's one of the new buildings at the University of Manchester, actually just a stone's throw from where André and Kostya do their work. And as a result of that announcement, what we now know is that some 40 million of that money is coming to Manchester for a new graphene hub, which will involve a building just the other side of those buildings on Booth Street West, opposite the Aquatic Centre, next to the Booth Street car park, for a new facility which will bring together the existing university researchers, a lot of new university researchers, plus a whole bunch of other stuff as well. And that other stuff, we hope, is going to include some of the biggest names in the global economy. There are over 40 global firms talking with the University of Manchester at the moment. And this is just a sample of some of those who have been in or are coming in into the university to talk with André, Kostya and the team, including our very own Siemens. The challenge is going to be to turn that level of interest into investment over time to create a hub. Part of the space in that new building is going to be for those companies to have listening posts and eventually, hopefully, to put large numbers of staff on the ground. But it's not just about that. It's about enterprise as well. At the request of André Geim, each doctoral student at the university who's studying with them is studying enterprise. He believes profoundly and passionately, as do we, that it's not just about big companies. That's what we learn from the history of the Industrial Revolution. It's about entrepreneurs, innovators, being the same people embodying a new spirit of endeavour, and that's very much what the University of Manchester is building. Anyone know what that was a picture of? It's San Jose. San Jose, the self-proclaimed capital of Silicon Valley. I don't think it's entirely fanciful for us to think that from a standing start with these researchers coming to Manchester in 2004, through the growth of the biggest cluster of graphene researchers, certainly in Europe, the awarding of the Nobel Prize, the youngest Nobel Prize in 30 years, to one guy in Kostya Novoselov, who might well have another Nobel Prize with him. For them to have built that team further, for us to have secured the down payments on what will be several hundred millions of investments by the British government in graphene over the next 10 years, for us to have a building that's got the space for large companies, for small companies, as well as academic research. To have all that and the commitment of working with the city for us to think about how we can turn that building, the campus, into something that we're calling Graphene City. That has got to be the objective of what we're doing here. And it's why at a property and regeneration conference like this, we think it's absolutely appropriate to be talking about graphene, to be talking about science, and to be talking about it in a stand that's very much designed as a laboratory, as a clean room, that's emblematic of what it is we're trying to do, which is to create a bright future based on science, technology, and all that goes with it. I hope that's been of some interest and that you know even more about graphene than you did before I started. Thank you very much.